Hello, everyone. All right. Hello. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning. I'm starting today's stream with a bit of focus on Dorian Crawl, which I painted during my stream 2 weeks ago. Such a lovely miniature. Truly amazing design. It's this dandy that has this facial expression that just says, "I'm bored to tears. I'm just above anything that you have to say." Cloaked in feathers with some magic going on because he's an incorporeal spirit. So that happened 2 weeks ago. I just did some final touches like painting the black rim of the base. I think I also added a bit of darker green to the back. But speaking of wonderful and unique designs, today I'm bringing another miniature from Malifaux Burns. It's the model that everyone loves to hate. 33, the infamous 33, the kidnapper model, the model that can essentially, well, maybe not remove, but remove from active play a model a turn, or a crucial model turn one. So this is like a larger Death Marshal, very dynamic sculpt, plenty of flames going on, nice big coffin, and clearly an angry lady who had been locked in that coffin for a good while. Now I'll start with the base, because you should start with something. So why not the base? Sounds like could be a good starting point. And the story behind this model is that this is one of the first Death Marshals that was created by Lady Justice back in the day, and she had a kind of beef with Lady Justice because Death Marshals uh, tread this very treacherous and dangerous path between necromancy and magic, and she was pushing things too much towards necromancy. So she had a face off with Lady Justice. They got angry. Lady Justice got angrier, and she locked her in this coffin. And she kept her locked in it for years, for years, without letting her out. But then, as the story evolves, Lady Justice in Malifaux Burns becomes this death-touched Lady Justice. So I guess the explanation might be that desperate time for desperate measures, and she approached the coffin in which 33 was locked, and she released her. There was some kind of communication, not spoken out loud, but some kind of connection was established or reestablished. And 33 was back, but changed and with different powers, because she spent years locked in the void, exposed to the effects of that place, or I'm not sure if place is even a good term to refer to it. Maybe that non-place, or that's something. And as a result, we have this wonderful model, and I'm really happy to be painting her during a stream, because Death Marshals were the minis that actually got me interested in the world of Malifaux in the first place. It was several years ago. Then it was there were 3 male Death Marshals that came in the starter set with Lady Justice. There was Judge, 3 Death Marshals, and Lady Justice. And I believe that Death Marshals might have been on the cover of the first book or mini rules book. Either way, that got me really interested in the game, and I thought that I need to find out more about it. So a couple weeks later, I bought the box. It was around the time that the Avatar models were initially released, so quite a while ago. And here I am, a couple years later, still enjoying painting miniatures from Mali Orange more than anything else. So what I'm doing now is I'm kind of wet blending. I just applied a generous layer of basilican and gray to the base coat, and just adding random spots of brown and green. That way it will look kind of organic, and I will be able just to give it a light dry brush, and it will look like solid stone. Now, the plan for painting the model itself, I think I will start with the coat, because it's very, very complex miniature. I mean, not that many colors, to be honest, but still quite a few decisions that I need to make. And one of the key decisions will be how to paint this magical effect surrounding 33. So there's plenty of this fire-like thing going on. So I think I will start with dark brown coat. I will be using some purple for the shaded areas, and that way the brown cloak will be better incorporated, because I plan to use, well, vivid pink on the flames. And after that, maybe the trousers, the shoes, dark brown trousers, the skull. Those I don't think are hands, because seeing the skull, those would be gloves. Then I can do the coffin, probably some old wood. Then all the chains, and then I assume that will be in the second half of the stream, because for those parts alone I would need maybe an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours. And then the flames, it seems like extremely complex and challenging to do it, to do them justice, no pun intended. But I'll try to figure out a way of doing them fast and nice. So I'll be using extremely vivid pink for that, but I would need to rebase them with white. So why don't I start with the cloak? And for this I will use Gore Grantafur, because it's this wonderful, solid, warm shade of brown. It should flow nicely into the recessed areas. And I'm using my favorite magnetic miniature holder. The miniature is magnetized. That just makes me feel more confident when I paint, and moreover when I transport the miniatures. Maybe actually before I start applying first washes, I will just push a little bit of white into the recessed areas, because it seems like the base coat didn't catch in some of the recessed areas. And while doing so, I'll just also very lightly go over the raised areas. At this point, I can already bring back some of the flames, because then bringing them to pure white just takes much longer if they are affected by different color. And if I do the ivory shade now, the ivory white, it will just go much faster later on. So it's a bit doing some additional work now to make things go faster later. Just making sure that all the recessed areas are also filled with base coat. Haven't played much recently, only one game since my previous stream. I think it was since my previous stream, or maybe it was even longer ago. My last game was with Titania, the Autumn Queen. I fought to a draw against a very aggressive Misaki 1 crew, and I'm enjoying. I really like Titania 2. I haven't played much, only 2 games, 1 loss and 1 draw. So can't say much about how effective they are, but certainly a lot of potential and potential to improve. But that will come with time. Maybe I can also retouch some of the other parts of those flames, because later on I just want to have them base coated with white. Here I'm making sure that all the areas are covered. Also some at the back. I think I'll go for greenish, maybe slightly greenish shade on the coffin, especially towards the back. And I think I'm ready to start with Gorgon the Fur. I also have Tara. Let me just showcase the Tara model to you, because that's a pretty unique model. I don't know if I will paint her in a stream, because I still have no idea how to approach painting her. Just imagine, it takes a while. Those two are easy to assemble because their legs are kind of joined, so you have to assemble them together. And then there's the third one, which goes in front of them, and she fits very nicely. I just pinned her to a separate base because I want to have this transition effect, like she's running out of void. So one of them will be maybe purple, the other purple pink, and the other pink and normal colors, so that it looks like she's emerging from the void. But that's a crazy design. I mean, how do you come up with such designs? It just puzzles me. That's some next level creativity. Now time to add some color. Or actually, maybe even before I go with brown, I will go with skeleton horde. Just paint the skull, so that I have already some point of reference, because it's this mean looking grinning skull. Nicely detailed bit. And now I can move on to the rest. So Gorgontafer, let's get on with it. It's probably one of my favorite contrast paints although I've been using speed paints from Army Painter 2, just their equivalent of Gorgrantopher is slightly lighter, and I like this darker shade that Gorgrantopher has. Just settles in so nicely on bright base coat, and the shades that it creates, they immediately look good. And as always, when applying contrast paints, I apply too much and move it, or try to spread it over the surface of the miniature, just making sure that no paint pools in one area. There are some flames on the sleeves as well, pretty much all over the miniature. I'm just looking at a picture for reference to make sure I don't work over where the flames are meant to be too much, because then I will need to bring it back to white again. I think this one, I mean, if I was rushing things, I could paint her in probably less than 2 hours. I'm not going to rush things, I'm going to take it slow, make sure that above anything else I enjoy it, because this is a hobby that you shouldn't feel pressurized to do. And just looking at the reference, yeah, it looks like this is still part of the sleeve. The artwork doesn't really help that much because it's what you see when you look at the artwork is just this purple glow around the model. And typically, Malifu artwork is on the darker side of things. And as I said earlier, I just like how immediately you get this very nice effect just right after applying the brown base coat. I mean, the brown contrast paint. And the flames and the chains are kind of in a way, so I'm trying to just work my way around them, just making sure that everything that's meant to be brown should be brown, and I don't really worry about covering the chains in brown at this stage, because the chains will be covered with black first. I assembled it over the weekend. I had a nice, relaxing weekend with plenty of time for assembling miniatures. I have quite a few of the newish releases assembled, standing locked in the cabinet in front of me. And I want to just make sure I assemble them, because then when it's in front of me, not hidden in a box in a wardrobe, then I feel more incentivized to actually pick up a brush in my spare time and actually get some paint going. Painting is just my main way of unwinding. I used to play more video games, but now I just find painting more relaxing. And besides, it's the time when I don't look at the screen, which is important because I look at the screen most of the day. So that's in itself is hugely beneficial, and my eyes feel much better. I just don't look at the screen, so just listening to audiobook and enjoying the painting process. Otherwise, I just enjoy doing some sports when I'm not working. But I do enjoy sports pretty much on a daily basis, just to keep my body in reasonable shape and my mind as well. Now this and that. That's almost done for the coat. Then the chains and the flames. And the gloves maybe will come next. So even at this very, very early stage, it already looks decent. I mean, this Gore Grantafur is a really wonderful shade. Not all equal. Not all contrast paints are that good. Some of them are really bad, in my opinion. But this is one of the top three for sure. Now we're going to go darker, and maybe before I actually go darker, I will go yellowish. So I'm going to use now. Which one is yellow? This one should be yellow. So Zealot yellow with a small touch of snake white leather for the gloves. So I'll first apply the yellow and then just lightly dip my finger in snake white leather. And mix it. And that way I should have this light shade of brown, which is much brighter than what I have on the cloak. And this is all subject to change because the purplish glow will be reflected on those elements, so they will lose their initial coloring later on in the process. I'll just make sure that there is a bit of transition. Same here, keep it slightly darker in one area. And now I'll see, I'm trying to get better at it because all my paints are above here, and I just try to keep myself organized better. and just put back the paints that I'm not using right now, because otherwise what ends up happening is I get surrounded by paints and then I start looking for one specific color and lose a lot of valuable time. Maybe I'm just control freak when it comes to the process. Now, Cyber Brown, it's a really, really dark shade of brown. It's like almost black, super dark, and immediately impacts the surface. And this part, I believe, is also flame. Now there will be some back and forth here because I will need to bring all those flame-like bits back to pure white before I continue working on the flame effect. Just want to make sure that the dark brown settles in nicely. And while I have a darker shade, I might go ahead and already base coat the chains. They will look better and will give me a much better clarity on where to move next. I mean, using this method of heavily relying on contrast paints in the initial phase, I just try to start by just giving a solid layer of base coat to all the elements on the model, and then I can look at it and already make decisions of how to fine-tune it, where to go heavier, where to use brighter shades. Plenty of chains on this one. After all, she was locked in that coffin for a number of years, and I think that the model represents the scene where she is freed from the imprisonment and just bursts out, dragging chains that locked her in, along with the mysterious void, energy, or magic. Hey, under construction paints. Indeed. It's a phenomenal model. Really, really impressive. I mean, I say this about pretty much every model that I've painted here, but there's awesome and there's 33, because this model just takes awesome to an entirely new level. And what I mean by that, it's just that you have the great level of detail, and when you know the story and you know that you're painting a named character at a really turning, defining point, and you know the background, it just makes it all the more enjoyable. Alrighty. Very true, very true. In fact, I was just showing earlier on that I have Tara from this box, and to be honest, I don't know how I feel about her. It's just such an odd master. You have like three normal-sized humans, which are almost identical, and they all somehow need to be squeezed into one 40mm base, which is a challenge in itself, just squeezing it in. But that's true. Some of the enforcers are really amazing, like in the Dreamer box, Lady Yuma, another of the impressive models from the enforcer range. And this one is probably the most, in terms of the way that the models are designed, probably the most dynamic, only for Burns box, because you have this Lady Justice that's leaping and stabbing a zombie with her blade. You have this three Taras and 43. So I'll probably paint the new Tara like this and the Sion implant from the new Cyberpunk Edge Runners anime. Oh, I haven't watched this yet. I mean, to be honest, I'm not much into Cyberpunk. Haven't played the game. Haven't really followed it. But now you got me interested. I think I will, for the Tara, I will use something similar to what I will do on the Flames here. So some kind of deep pink or purple. So that it really looks like some kind of magical fire. I mean, nothing wrong with just using it as a fire-like effect. Hey, welcome back. 80s cyberpunk material. Yeah. 80s and cyberpunk, it's clearly been present in the popular culture in recent years. Just looking at the blockbuster productions. And then there is this 80s themed crew, the cyberpunk themed crew, if you will, for Mayfang. I had the pleasure of painting it a while ago. Some really nicely designed miniatures in that Nightmare crew. The chains are pretty much outlined at this point. I just will rotate a couple of times, make sure I don't miss any spots. Probably that's all for the chains. Then there is the shoes. Or only one boot is really visible because the other one is submerged in this fire-like effect. When they activate special implant, it's just like after images of them going from hot to cold temperature. Okay, so saturated to desaturated. Yeah, that's actually something that I had in mind. Maybe not going from saturated to desaturated. I was thinking about going from this purple pink shade to standard shade. Just the regular colors. That's my thinking at this point. But that's subject to change, of course. Now going even heavier, I will just go with pure black on the boot, the one boot that's visible. But for Terra stuff, that could work. I mean, you have this. I'd be curious to see. I think I saw one painted. Could be one that was commissioned by Word to some painter on Instagram, and he painted them all in a kind of similar way. So it looked. I mean, from technical standpoint, it looked phenomenal. But just there wasn't this echo or transparency effect going. Just your regular excellent paint job. So there's 33, and maybe not painted in 33 minutes, but the key elements are outlined. Now let's do the coffin. And for the coffin, I think I will start with something rather light. Well, thank you for believing in me. I'll see what I can do. Actually, I think I will maybe even paint her over the weekend because this weekend looks like I should have more time. I just needed to assemble taras separately because if I glued them all together, I just wouldn't be able to do that. Now for the coffin part, I will use a lot of Malina green and mix it with a touch of hardened leather from the speed paint range. And mix them all. And I should have like this rotten brown color. That's what I'm aiming for. Maybe some very light color that's different than the cloak. I will just give a wash over the coffin. Turned out even brighter, lighter than I thought, but that's fine. Actually, I would just add a little bit of orc skin just to saturate it more towards the green spectrum. Well, that's more what I had in mind. More like it. I'll actually do the green from the bottom, and it will be gradually moving towards brownish shades. Same for the interior part. And now back to more brownish shade. It's just easy to mix the colors together when they are not fully dry and create those nice transitions from brown to green and the other way around. And also be vigilant and monitor that there are no pools of dried paint. Well, because they look like pools of dried paint if you leave them be. So it's important to just monitor, stay alert, and as soon as you notice paint pooling in one area, just make sure that you move it around. Okay. And the rest is just flames. Nothing more to it. Just flames. I'm not going to rush my way through that part of the process. Just pausing here for a second. All those flames will be purple or pink or both. For now, I will maybe add some purple shade to the cloak because I want it to be better integrated with the flames surrounding it that will be painted afterwards. You just finished up an entry piece for latest concerts that you entered in. Now I have the rest of the day to start with a new one. Yeah, keep up the momentum. If you're in the painting groove, then no need to stop. So I'll just use Hex Lichen, Purpura Hechicero. Maybe that's easier to pronounce. On phonetic level, Spanish is a tad easier for Polish speakers than English, but on the level of grammar, I think Spanish is tougher, especially when you start those learning about those more advanced structures like subjuntivo, and then it becomes whole different new level of complexity. So I'm just going with diluted purple now over some of the recessed areas. Just saturate them a little bit, and that way also the purple will be, this purple surrounding it will be absorbed better into the overall composition. So the painting process here, it's going fairly quickly, and the miniatures for the assembly, it was pretty straightforward. I only had one challenge because I think this part of the chain, I just looked at it, and I didn't really know where to fit it in. I was a bit clueless. That took me a while to figure out. But beyond that, it was pretty straightforward to assemble it correctly. Of course, everything fit well nicely. So when the paint is diluted, that gives you this huge advantage that you can easily move it around the surface, and that way stay in control of the process. So there is this purple undertone to the whole section. I'll do the same on the gloves. Besides, I also think that generally purple works so well with brown, because purple is this peculiar color that isn't, I would hesitate to put it in the cold range immediately. Something between warm and cold, and brown is definitely a warm color. So when you have interaction between these two, the result is interesting. Now for some of the highlights I will use not this one, that's the one I meant, Morgan Brown, which is also one of the colors that I like. I still have an old bottle with it, which is unfortunately partly dried now. Very thick, so I need a drop of water at least. And before I mix it with a bit of yellow, I will just go over the recessed areas and re-establish the brown there. And maybe instead of going to yellow now, what I'm going to do is I will use yellow, but sun yellow from Vallejo. Very nice shade of yellow, very good paint. I will just mix it with a little bit of brown, with more than brown, so that I have this yellowish shade. Then I will do a quick dry brush, just to really pick those raised areas. Normally when I paint, I either listen to Malifaux podcasts, although recently I bought subscription to Audible, and the first two books that I bought were the ones were two by Stephen King, his most recent ones. Currently finishing the Fairy Tale, which is his latest book, and I have mixed feelings about it because it started off really well as a typical King story, small town, main character who isn't really, there isn't anything special about him. But then things become unnatural, and when they become unnatural, it kind of loses. I lost some of the interest in the character and in the story because it was replaced with those imaginary characters, which at first, when they were sparse, they were very intriguing. When they became more numerous, kind of lost their initial impact. But I will still finish it, and then we'll probably listen, catch up on some Malifaux podcasts because I haven't been checking on them regularly. Although I did check on YouTube content. So first of all, I want to give a shout out to one of my favorite YouTubers who regularly publishes amazing stuff from Malifaux, very insightful, in-depth lore videos. And the most recent one is about the city of Malifaux. So there's a map with an overview of what's where, what happened where. So if you want to see some good content, just 5 minutes, approximately 5 minutes long, and it will be time well spent. Well, thank you, Kim, for putting the link. It's always good content, and this one is very insightful. Now I'll use a dry brush, a very light dry brush. Just want to make sure that there is barely any paint left on the brush. And I think it works really good with leather or leather-like elements because it nicely just settles on those raised areas. And as always in those Defective Dice videos, there's plenty of insights. And the nice thing is that Jeff, who runs it, he replies to the comments. So if you want to have a discussion with him, give your own take on maybe some of the things that you feel were not covered or could be covered, you can just comment or join his Discord. I mean, if you click on the YouTube link, I'm sure there is already a link to his Discord where you can have a very deep or very serious or just fun and ridiculous, depending on what you're after, discussions about Malifaux universe. And it's a really, really rich universe. So I'm just giving dry brush to make sure those planks become a bit more prominent. Over here I plan to have some, I'm going heavier because I will be doing something like this, as if this kind of energy was seeping through the planks. And the first hour is almost through. So clearly it has taken more than 33 minutes to get to this point. But we are already getting somewhere. And I'll switch to ivory, which is this nice shade of white because it's not, shade of white. White is white, but it's a bit of off-white. It's not pure white for sure. And I see it as an advantage because that way when I dry brush it won't create such huge contrast. And I will dry brush it, just put it on the tip of my thick brush for dry brushing. Then remove the excess and very, very lightly just touch the most raised areas. And I can go a bit heavier on the skull. still need to darken the eye sockets. And I can go a bit heavier towards the top of the coffin. And that's it. A bit of cleanup now needed. I just want to put those paints that I'm not using right now aside and keep it in some kind of order, because otherwise I get surrounded by paints and can't seem to find anything when I need to do that. Now I'll switch to quick shade tones, quick shade washes. But maybe I'll start with soft tone on the leather cloak. I can just apply it directly and it should nicely bring it all together. It's like filtering, because those extreme highlights with dry brush that I've just applied are still there, but they look as if they are filtered through brown lens. It's just like applying a color filter. And that way the cloak doesn't look banal, it's just no longer this pure brown with some shades and some highlights. It's much more complex collection of colors is what I would like to describe it as. Alright, now I can go towards tinting the coffin, and for that I will use mid brown, and I will start with just mid brown, and I will approach it from the top and just apply it. Maybe I can even go heavier here. I'll go with strong tone already. I just want it a bit heavier. And towards the bottom I will just use more touch of green. So while still using the brown, just mixing in maybe some intensity ink. And while it's still nice, I'm just pulling it from the bottom towards the top. Just going across the center. A few touches here and there. And that way it will leave this kind of impression of wood that's been slowly rotting. Hey, Haunted! How's it going? You painting? Or too early for you to start? I remember you mentioned that you don't sleep that much, so I assume you're probably just getting started. Or not even there. I can put away some of the things, some of the washes. On Mia. Mia, so that's the henchman from what's her name? Maxine crew, I believe. The armored lady with this mean looking spear. It's a cool model. With this, she has this like modern looking armor as far as I remember. Oh, the Damian title box. Okay, so that's a different Mia. Kia is the name of that one. Just rhymes with it, but it's close enough. Now I'm going to use this one. Is this the one that in the artwork has this like Santa Muerte face paint? I think that's the one. Keeping the interior part much darker than the exterior. Yeah, Kia and Mia. Now while all the glazes and washes I've applied are drying, I will move to pure black, and that, my friends, is the best black color out there. Negro black, Spanish for black, right? And it's just super matte finish, ease of application, ready to paint. I always paint the rims of my bases with it because it's got such a nice deep shade of black. Just look at this, just perfect black. It is my favorite. I just when it's over, I just buy a new bottle. Just can't imagine. I've tried different types of black, just none of them seem to work. Maybe I'm using them wrong, but just they don't seem to get the job done for me. So I will now go over all the chains on the miniature because I just applied dark contrast paint on them so far. But the plan is to paint them and then focus on the magic. Of course, any color you want as long as it's black and not goblin green. unless you want to go funny old school on purpose. I think that was a thing to do with your GW miniatures back in the 90s, where for some reason it became extremely popular. Scale 75. Okay. See, I've used a few of scale 75 paints, but they just work a bit differently. I mean, I have some of them. Those are scale 75. I have a few of those from the Kickstarter. And I like acrylics and oil paints. Clearly a different experience. Maybe I'll actually get hold of them later on tonight. But just can't really seem to make them work. They are the ones that I had were very thick and just reacted to flow improvers or just water or thinners in a different way than what I'm used to. So maybe it's a matter of getting used to different product, but I just didn't. Base rims with glitter. Yeah, that could be nasty. So not the most exciting part right now because I'm just going over the chains and reestablishing back pure black. But then the fun part will really start. The fun part with the flames. It all looks super glossy, which is perfectly fine at this point. I have no issue with that. Let's just work on that coffin a little bit more because I don't like it yet. I need to keep the interior darker. Sergio Calva. That bit about painting rims and nickel. Oh, could be. So now a bit of Wildwood maybe. Just to keep it a bit darker on the internal side. I mean, Spanish people seem to have. Wonder why this is, because they seem to have both great painters and great paints. Maybe it's the artistic tradition of the nation. Like, think about famous painters, even. Actually, my favorite painter is from Spain, Salvador Dali. I mean, compared to him, Marilyn Manson seems like a humble and quiet person. And he did it all before there were media, there were this kind of media that we have now. Just did it because that's who he was. I mean, gradients, I think I would say that gradients, as long as they make sense from the game perspective, probably cool. But I just wouldn't bother doing that on Malifa if it doesn't have any impact. Now I think I will go for darker shade of brown. Maybe even not brown. I will go to shinish purple color. Super dark purple. Almost black. And with that, I will just give one more quick swipe around the interior area of the coffin. Leave some traces of it on the outside. Template for painting bar. They look legit. Yeah. I mean, did you play competitively in the tournaments? If you managed to get by with that, then I salute you. That's an achievement in itself. Now some silver. So, just local scene. Okay, okay. So it's fine. Now time to put some silver on it. And I will use a smaller dry brush, smaller brush for dry brushing. Apology tour. All right. You're a good person. I mean, what would an apology tour look like in Malifa? Giving your opponent advantage of victory points from the get-go or something like that. And it's, I mean, humbling really that you did that. Because you didn't set out planning to do that, it just happened. Yeah, that can happen. It leaves a bit of bitter aftertaste if you win knowing that you had some kind of upper hand. So what I'm doing now is just going over with silver. Lightly dry brushing it over all the chains. So not super dry, semi-dry brush, because then I will just give it some glazes with inks. Tone it down and then repeat it. Destroy those photos as long as they are not uploaded anywhere on the internet. You can go ahead and destroy them. If they're uploaded anywhere, and it's already too late. Nothing you can do. Oh, okay. Speaking of cool things, one thing I wanted to bring up. I'm sure anyone following this stream is well familiar with Malifaux University. It's a great, great YouTube channel, which essentially walks you through the main concepts of strategies, gameplay mechanics with very clear examples, cute how a certain scheme works, and it's out there. You will have it all laid out in such a clear way that there will be no room for misinterpretation. Now, Word gets involved with their community, and we all know it. And they did a very nice thing because they reached out to some content creators, and ahead of the release of Madness of Malifaux, which is the latest book, which drives the arc of the story forward or backward. You never know with Malifaux which direction it is going to go, but in order to get community involved, once again they did the same thing with Malifaux Burns. So they have content creators who share some, well, not necessarily even sneak peeks, some full models. And in the latest video by Malifaux University, you have an overview of the returned keyword. There are a few models that are presented. One of them is Castora. So the new Nightmare Nephilim Master. Well, that's the link. Thank you so much. I don't know if this is the titled version or the non-titled. I don't know if it was mentioned in that video. I don't recall it, but anyways, that's 40 millimeter master on the 40 millimeter base. We can put some nasty conditions, put some damage, but what really my key takeaway was how much that crew can, how much chaos they can cause with scheme marker placement. It's a really interesting crew. There's the Atharak, a henchman who can put 2 markers which create a line that you draw through them, and the opponents cannot shoot through that, which is amazing because we all know that Neverborn hate guns, and that allows them to have some good protection against guns, at least for a turn or most of it. And you just grab the color I want. Yeah, that's the returned video. Now some washes on the chains. And the master, they have this mechanics that when they feel their health above the capacity, funny things can happen. They have way of applying passive damage. And the henchman is this axe wielding Nephilim-like creature. And there are also, what else was there? The minions, the scheme runners, super scheme runners, really good with the ability to teleport to a friendly model. And so anytime a scheme runner can teleport, that in itself increases their efficiency significantly. So 3 or 4 models. We'll try to be good while you're away. So there were, I think, at least 3 models that were previewed in that video. I just need to quickly check. So, oh yeah, and one more thing, definitely the totem, which is a completely new thing for Malifaux because it's a model that you can't kill because it doesn't have health pool. So it's a sword. It's on a large base, 50 or 40 millimeter. Can do some damage, can drop some markers. Castora can do some things through it, but the funny bit is that you can't really destroy it. You can bury it, you can put conditions on it, but you cannot kill it. And it doesn't have engagement, so it cannot be engaged and it cannot engage. So how unpleasant it's going to be? Well, it depends. It doesn't cause a lot of damage. but it can heal the master when it puts some damage. And I think a lot of the returned keyword will depend on how effectively you use the keyword ability of healing above when the model would heal above its maximum health. So you want to set yourself up in a position where models would get healed above their initial health, because then funny things happen. And the miniature, I mean, Castora looks like this huge, never-born, kind of thin, because it's like this vampiric never-born that feeds of black blood, I believe. So feeds on its people. And the blade, the totem, it looks like a massive sword with some kind of energy surrounding it, and it cleaves through mature, not young matures, not young Nephilim, or how are they called? Just through, there are some like tots or young Nephilims that seem to be like trapped in this kind of vortex surrounding the blade. So cool miniature for sure, and interesting how it's actually going to play out, having a master. And then I assume it's well, probably it's the original master. I think that this is the first. Those are the masters that will be shown first, and then we need to see what the titled master actually is capable of doing. So very good stuff. And next up in line is Danger Planet. So again, cool content creators, and they will be previewing more models, potentially from more keywords. Sounds like fun. Now maybe I can do the skull. Man, halfway through the stream, and already making a nice impact. But I'm definitely going to check out any other new videos on Malifaux with new models from Madness of Malifaux. I would certainly hope that some more are also previewed. I think that there was a lot of discussion on Discord and on the Wordplace about the models that were presented during Gen Con, because the returned keyword was assuming that those were all miniatures from the keyword. They were in one glass cabinet. There was one even person with really good eyesight pointed out that there was this alternative, not Tuka, Iggy, wearing dragon costume, but it was assembled and glued to the base in a more horizontal position, different than the artwork depicts him. Hey, welcome back. And there was this like machine Atlas-like statue that was standing in the middle of the returned models, which caused a lot of speculation. And that would be cool to know what that machine is and why it's standing among the Neverborn, who are probably the last faction that you would associate with any type of construct-like things. And that clearly appeared to be some kind of construct, really, some kind of machine. And we all know that Neverborn don't work with machines. So why it's there? And was it just by chance? Or does it make sense? Is it a machine that will be used by the Neverborn? That's what I'm most looking forward to find out. But we will find out relatively soon, because the Madness of Malifaux is expected to hit the shelves in October, I believe. And October is next week. Just like those fancy Dia de Muerte miniatures from Alternative Lady Justice Group, which I am very, very tempted to get. Now let's feel those eye sockets. It already looks meaner. I'll put some pure black on the skull later on, but much, much later, when the flames are already there. I'll just kind of try to redefine the jaws. And there she is, looking even more mean. Now, so midpoint of the stream, let me just stretch out a little bit. Guys, remember to stretch out. Walk up, walk around the room, go for a quick walk. Don't sit for too many hours. Take a break when you need it. I'm not in need of break right now. Just focused on painting, but really important to have those breaks every now and then. I think I can go a bit heavier on those recessed areas here. And for that, I'll just need the darker brown. And that will do it, but maybe Shai's purple actually could work. Just a little bit of it. I'll thin it down. I thin it down too much. So when you visit those, when you click those YouTube links, just one thing that I would kindly ask you to do, just give a thumbs up, drop a comment. Those people don't do it for money. They do it because they are passionate about the hobby and they have something unique to present, be it knowledge of fluff or just speculation about theory crafting, whatever it is. Just give credit where credit is due. And you can't go wrong with it. And also here, I think this one should be a bit darker. And honestly, there's so much Malifaux content online that sometimes I just find it hard to stay up to date with everything, really. because there's so much going. Now, great one, and time to bring the flames out. And what I mean is I will be just walking my way around all the flames, bringing back the base coat, then highlighting it to white, and then, well, messing with it. Adding all those fancy flame-like effects. About time, since we've reached the midpoint of the stream. I'm really having a blast working on this wonderful model. And you might think that what's the point of being so fast and painting over the details if you need to bring them back to white? Well, it still is a faster process, at least in my view, than avoiding painting on those surfaces first time round. Well, at least that's how it works for me. And then white will be easier to get to if I have this beige or beige-like color as a base coat. Sounds like it's raining today. I mean, it's been fairly warm in recent days, with a bit more rain. Definitely not cold yet. Although my perception of temperature is different because I don't mind cold at all. So it has to be really, really cold for me to actually acknowledge that it is in fact cold. Magical flames. Needing to bring them out again. And there will be some white on those chains, which is really fine because I want them to look like they are partly illuminated by the glow coming from the internal part of from the inside part of the coffin. And a little bit more here and here. It does sound like it's raining, which is good. We need rain. It's been dry for way too long. And this, I assume, is also part of flame. And I'm guilty of brush licking. I do it partly unconsciously, partly consciously, but with paints that have heavy pigments like Ravebone, which is from the base paint range. So base color, we avoid it and don't leak it. Don't leak your brush after you use colors from the base range because the aftertaste is just awful. So if I catch myself doing it, I regret it because it's just unpleasant. The flames on the head. There's this comic book character that has a flaming skull, isn't there? Don't know the name, I'm not that familiar with comics. This looks like part of the flame as well. Ghost Rider. Oh yes, that's the name. I think there is a movie with Nicolas Cage. Out of all the actors, he plays the Ghost Rider, I believe. I mean, I've watched only part of the first Avengers movie, and that really, I mean, I get it. That I get it why people like them. Just not my cup of tea. But I absolutely get it because those are, I mean, they can be entertaining, wonderfully bad. So kind of movie that you could potentially enjoy watching with a group of good friends. So we have gone quite far. Quite happy with the progress. What I will do now is I will use off-white, maybe this time I will use ivory from bottle color. And I will keep those flames brighter because I'm just preparing for the final stage of work on this model actually. So if I finish early, which is still a chance, I may either finish the stream earlier or just switch to something else because I have, I mean, just to show you guys, that cabinet over there is just filled with all kinds of Mali for goodness. So I don't need to reach for assembled miniatures which are primed and ready for painting. Got quite a few of them. Mostly Mali for burn stuff. And some, I mean, I do paint commissions, but I'm kind of picky and I paint what I really like or what I haven't painted. And the trick is that I like pretty much everything from Malifa, but there are miniatures which I just see the artwork and I immediately know, okay, I'm painting this one. So when then someone asks me if I would like to do a commission on that, then I say, yeah, well, I want to. Like a good example are botanists. Those are essentially walking dioramas, such cleverly designed miniatures. And I will be painting them in the near future for sure. They all look super fun to paint. So now I'm not really highlighting, and I'm actually, while bringing back those flames, I'm more even focused on the recessed areas rather than the raised areas, because that's where the, the OSL or any kind of light effects will actually come into play. And now maybe some supplementary colors that I could use here, or no, just looking at that. No, that's for now. I'll just stick with this ivory white. I mean, not white, but whitish color. So now it looks a bit messy, like this whitish thing feels out of place, but it will gradually start phasing in. But before we go there, we need to still reinforce the bright color. And the bright color will be now dead white. So again, I'm not really used to one specific type of paint in general, but there are just certain colors that I cannot really imagine working without, and dead white is one of them. From game color and black from model color. Those have been staples in my painting repertoire for several years at least. So once I get used to certain color and I know that I can always rely on it, I tend to stick with it and I don't experiment with others unless I'm enticed by some outstanding new properties. Or I just sometimes feel like it. Wonderfully bad is how I felt watching the first Avengers, really. I mean, taking out the word wonderful, just bad. But still, I get it. I get it. I understand why it's fun. You read the comic books, you have your own imagination, visualization of the characters. It's all epic, big, fancy. Special effects are decent. So yeah, those movies can be fun to follow. I just don't watch movies in general. I only watch TV series every now and then. The last TV series I watched was Mayans, which is like a spin-off of Sons of Anarchy, which is one of my absolute favorites of all time. Mayans is pretty good. Not as good as sounds, but got much better towards the back end of the third season. Right now, I've been watching the House of House of the Dragon, I believe. Yes, House of the Dragon, and it's just different. Not as enjoyable as the Game of Thrones was for me. Clearly missing characters like Tyrion, who was by far my favorite. And it feels like it's all building up towards something, but I'm just getting a bit frustrated that it's so much talking, so little action. I mean, the setup is pretty solid for something epic to happen before the end of the season, but feels like we are still a few episodes away from that, and the season is almost over. Okay, now getting close to the point where I can actually start using pink. And now it's raining really heavily. Typical autumn weather in Poland at this time of year, unfortunately. Just noticed that I accidentally touched up where I didn't want to touch up. Still, I will use a bit of pure white. Maybe grab a different brush for that. Just dampen it a little bit. So that the white flows better into the recessed areas. And as mentioned earlier, I'm at this point more concerned about white getting into the recessed areas than the raised ones. It's already looking pretty cool. pretty cool. And my back feels a bit sore. Just stretching out a little bit. Time for some pink action now, I guess. I will use this, but later on. But for now, we'll start with magenta. Mix it with just white to have very light pink color. I can actually start going with pure magenta on the areas around. Because that will give this nice like pinkish afterglow. Trying to just avoid the deep recessed areas. Just like, not like that. Because it's very thin, and I will bring back the recessed areas with white later on. But for now, we'll just go with pink, pink, pink. Making it all look pink and pretty. And on purpose, applying it generously, making sure I actually touch the surface surrounding the flames. This is such a cool miniature. Now it's really starting to come to life. I'm going a bit fast, so apologies if it becomes a bit blurry for you guys following on the stream, but I will be going over it just a few times to gradually put this solid pinkish shade all over the flames. And it's that way there will be transition from white to pink that will be gradual. And I can always go back and refill the recessed areas with pink, which I will do with white, which I will do shortly after it starts drying. Maybe I'll grab a slightly smaller brush. Still plenty of work here, but it's already going somewhere. And thanks to the fact that the inks are really thin, they're like colored water, really, the consistency. It's not like way thinner than paint. It's pretty actually handy for this kind of work, because I can just go over the flames a few times. And just gradually build it towards the upper areas. It's like painting fire at this point, where you think that the misconception is that in reality the brightest is at the top, but the fact is that fire is brightest in the center where the temperature is the highest, where the heat is centered. So that's what I'm doing here, just keeping white, thinking of it as a magical fire. That's how I think about it, and it helps me conceptualize and prepare my approach to working on these sections. This looks like some kind of pinkish goo, but it will look more like flames very soon. Just want to make sure that I paint the base area surrounding the flames also with this quick glaze of pink. And I can slowly then start going towards the purple spectrum. Just want to make sure also that all those chains, I didn't really put too much work into the chains because I knew that I would be giving them a number of glazes of purple later on. So I just saw no point in adding any weathering effect or deep shades, extreme edge highlights, just because I knew that I want to just kind of incorporate them better within the overall composition. Cool miniature. There's also the flame surrounding the head. And I will still be applying pure white into the deepest shaded, into the deepest recesses. And we are starting the third hour of the stream. So one more hour to finish everything here. Sounds absolutely feasible. There's something about pink that I really enjoy. I mean, I like the color in general. My daughters both love it, and many girls do, which is not something that one should take for granted before. They were going through that phase where everything needed to be pink, but now they are more open to having different colors around them. So I'm tinting all the areas around the flames because this magenta just works so nicely on other surfaces. Just kind of creating this glow light effect. I guess that's what I'm doing. Now time to get to a bit darker shades. So back to my purple. Back to my favorite staple purple. And let's see if it works now immediately if I apply it, or shall I mix it with a bit of magenta first? Maybe I'll just mix it with a bit of magenta and create this light purple shade. I can just work out the flames with a slightly darker spectrum. Now this is probably my favorite part of painting the model, where you were already things that you were uncertain about. I didn't really know where I'm going to end up. Now I know, and it's just a matter of completing the vision that I've put into motion. And flames, especially flames when there is movement involved, wind, or here the emergence from the burst of energy. It's very dynamic, so I don't want to paint it in a hugely structured, thought out way. I want the highlights to make it seem like the highlights are somewhat random. So just not doing it like specifically darker shade from, let's say, 20% of the upper section. Just generally making sure that this shift of colors from brighter to darker is present across the whole model. Just pausing for a second here. Hey, raiding party of 13. Gotchi, welcome. Welcome to the stream. Great to have a raiding party here. Just painting this Ghost Rider-like character from Malifaux universe. Those are some nice raccoons, I believe. Cool. And just chilling and painting a model from the wonderful universe of Malifaux that's made by Word Games. It's a skirmish tabletop game, which is pretty unique. Witaj, welcome. Exactly. Some Polish. I'm based in Poland. Word is based in the US, in Georgia, Marietta, and it's just a big, wonderful community. Pandas and trash pandas. Cool. Those are pandas and trash pandas. Nice. Nice. Cool that you made it to the stream. And the game is pretty unique because it's story-driven, character-driven. So you play with one master and the crew, one or two masters and the crew, and you don't roll dice, which is probably the only game that has this kind of mechanics where you have a deck of cards instead. So deck of cards is a neat tool because it's not completely random. Because you know how many high cards, how many low cards are there by default. Jokers are hugely impactful in that game. And it's a really well designed game. The community is amazing. So check out the Word website, Word forums, Word Discord, and the art. I mean, the art. Come on, where else do you have such cool miniatures? It's a lady. Actually, it's a lady who was imprisoned in this coffin. 2 streams I was lurking are now 1. Yeah, nice. Nice. Lurkers are more than welcome. Keep on lurking, keep on chatting, or just lurk, whatever floats your boat. So I'm now just pushing further this magic firelight effect. Just making sure it stays brightest in the center and gets gradually darker towards the raised areas. Very gradually. And then I will look back to where I started, which is using white. White in the deeply recessed areas, just to bring it out a little bit more, just kind of bring out the intensity of the color. So there are a couple streams on this channel. There are a few painters who just regularly we take turns in painting these awesome miniatures. And Malifaux is a game that's kind of eclectic when it comes to aesthetics and themes. So you have those wacky gremlins, you have like Victorian humans, which are highly organized society. You have demons and Cthulhu-like creatures, ghosts, a lot of Eastern horror, pretty much anything. I mean, whatever theme you enjoy in fantasy, I would risk saying that it's probably there in the universe of Malifaux. Too big for your cat. No glasses are too big for a cat. Thankfully, my cat is asleep in another room, otherwise it would try to crawl in my lap and cause all kinds of chaos. But welcome, Word Kyle. Clockwork drops at the moment. Pathfinder, cool. That's a nice model. I mean, it's a nice model if you play it. People hate playing against it, and those clockwork traps can be so much of a pain in the neck and other areas. And it's a cool model, like this crazy huntsman. So kind of now reinforcing the transition from white to dark purple. Just glazing some pink to make the transition smoother. I did paint that Pathfinder miniature quite a while ago because I used to paint Guild predominantly. That was the faction I started Malifaux with. Then gradually expanded towards the Neverborn because I just like the aesthetics of Neverborn more. Still like the Guild every now and then. I paint a lot of Guild for sure. But Neverborn are by far my favorites. This is a cool miniature. Oh, Neverborn. Oh yeah, the sleeper, the dreamer. You probably mean the little boy with scary nightmares. That's a wacky one as well. That's mean, psychotic boys. Psychotic boy who just enjoys his playthings, which happen to be nasty ancient creatures that rip people in pieces. But well, how would a little kid know, right? Can you blame a kiddo for just trying to have fun? Edgar Allan Poe. Oh yeah, Edgar Allan Poe was. I was actually studying English philology, so American literature was part of the curriculum, and Edgar Allan Poe's stories, short stories, are some of the most memorable ones. Still have a collection of them somewhere on my bookshelf. Seems like he really understood what makes horror horror. So he didn't need to put a lot of demonic entities or things into motion, just rather focusing on the psyche and the emotional response to fear. So now I'm just touching up some of the tips of the flames with pure black. Just pausing in here for a moment to get things into focus. Yeah, it's still plenty of time. I might actually get started on Tara. Who knows? Tara or something else. I'll just have to see. Just twirl so that I get a solid tip of the brush. I think the most memorable one was about that cask of Amontillado. That was the one about a person being Buried alive. Could be the one. Not really sure at this point. More pink. You cannot have enough pink and magenta. Now I'm just trying to load more pink onto the areas where the cloak meets the coffin, because here I want this to be more rosy so that it looks like not a part of regular cloth attached to another part of the miniature, but rather the borderline between actually the void and the reality, because that's a character that was trapped in the void for a number of years. And what happened to her there, no one really knows, but clearly Lady Justice is ready to forgive her past trespasses and use her in the good fight against anyone who would challenge Guild. And again, this will look very much different once it dries and once it loses the shine, because this glow is not something that I intend to keep. I use matte varnish. So now in order to have good flowing white, I will just use Lamy medium. I want to have it thinned down and I want to use it for a bit longer. So hopefully that will keep it flowing nicely. Hey, MacBluff. Good seeing you. Just painting a lovely lady. I love one of the many lovely ladies that Malifaux universe is full of. And now time to really add this heat to the waves, to the flames, the wave of heat, or however you want to call it. But I want to really focus the white highlights towards the recessed areas so that it looks like the heat is really gathering there. Well, thank you. Thank you. All done with brush over the past, I mean, I lost track of time, but I would say over the past hour, give or take. I mean, I started with just base coated miniature and took it from there. And the paint is thinned down because that way it kind of gets nicely incorporated into the pink, which is still not fully dry, and that's perfectly fine by me. I'm happy to keep it this way because then the transition is smoother. But I'm glad you like it. I'm for sure enjoying painting it. It's a blast, absolutely blast. Death Marshals are some of my favorite, maybe not characters, right? Because they're more like a unit. I would say maybe one of my favorite ideas in the world of Malifaux. Because when I might have I mentioned it today, but I might have mentioned it in my previous streams that the first time I saw this leaping Death Marshal, and I read that this is actually a board game. A tabletop game where you use dice instead of cards, cards instead of dice, and those are models in the game system that actually use large coffins for fighting. Well, I got interested. Oh, sounds like my cat desperately is trying to get into the room. There you go. There you go, cat. Don't jump on the desk, please. He's a sucker for attention, and he wants some proper pet time. That's him. Yes, that's my guy. He's been sitting next to my door for a while, and now wants to be pet, but he needs to wait. Sorry, dude. You just need to stay put for a while. 40 more minutes in the stream, give or take. So what I'm doing now is just using this diluted white and applying it into the recessed areas. That way it will kind of boost this dynamic heat-like effect coming off. I don't even know if I will use fluor pigments actually. I thought I would be using them a lot, but maybe I may, but I don't think I will. Or I may. Still, a lot can happen before this stream is done. Kitty time. Yeah. Well, my cat is, unlike yours, my cat is really a quiet one. He just wants love. He's just here for love. So he can sit in my lap, even if the position is not comfortable, but he just wants love. But he is in the doghouse today because he bit my younger daughter. She was having some kind of hot dog for dinner, and he could probably smell the sausage on her hand, and he just bit her. And there was a lot of drama, but I mean, nothing serious happened. More like a shock than actual pain. So I shouldn't be petting him. But how can you punish a cute kitty? Can't. Yeah. Hey, thanks for dropping by and bringing the ride with you. Oh yeah, I could hear your cat haunted when I join your streams. It's very talkative. It's cute. I like talkative cats. You still speak louder than your cat meows, which is fine. You can still keep the stream going. And who doesn't like a cat? Seems like the internet was just a place to repopulate cats and present them in all funny scenes. I think when YouTube started doing streams a couple of years ago, there was one stream when we just showed kittens just playing around in a basket, just sleeping, and it was a good night to you too. Take care and see you next time. Make sure to check out other streams for words. Yeah, it is pretty late here, almost 11:30, soon midnight, but I'm perfectly happy where I am, enjoying what I do and enjoying the company, and your participation in the chat makes it so much more enjoyable for me and hopefully enjoyable for you too, just as you work on your hobby projects, I have no doubt. I think I will do a bit more of extreme fire effects here as well. Just I thin down some paint and just go with a bit of pure white around those flames on the base. And you know what's coming. It's time to do some dry pigments. It will be applied shortly. I just need to allow the paint to dry completely. But that is pretty vibrant. Yeah, under construction thing, I miss that. You relate likewise when you smell a hot dog. Oh yeah, I get it. So I bought those special buns that are just custom made for just heating them in the oven and putting a hot dog inside, and the kids loved it. And the cat typically just keeps them company. For some reason, he just maybe he's maybe he's getting suicidal because he likes staying near the kids. I mean, my daughters are rather easygoing, rather quiet, but when the bedtime comes, kids tend to get the last of their energy to just go a little bit crazy before they go to bed. But I am having a blast. It just doesn't seem like I'm doing much at this point, I know, but it's just I'm pretty happy with what I have, and I'm just trying not to overdo it, not to just jump over the board with fine tuning it, because it's looking pretty good already, and would be silly to do too much now after all the hard work, brushwork. Oh yes, the cat is meowing so loudly. I mean, purring so loudly. Not sure the cat my microphone is that sensitive. I've recently actually ordered a new lamp, a kind of arc LED arc from Green Stuff World, which has a slot for inserting a webcam. So hopefully, I think it already got shipped. So hopefully next time around, I will already have it, and let's see how that affects the quality. Uh, I, for one, will enjoy it because currently I'm leaning over the camera, which is attached to the table in front of me. So not the most comfortable position for me. So I got used to that. It's been a number of streams already, so I kind of find my way around that, of working around that slight inconvenience. But that new lamp will definitely make my life easier. That's the plan. Now the plan is to add a bit more magenta. And again, just touch here, touch there. Just not making sure I don't overdo. So it looks pretty solid where it is now. It would be shame to do too much. Maybe a few touches of pure white in some areas. So half an hour left and almost done with this miniature, so I might actually start on something new. That would be fun. Let's see, yeah, it's timing. Time-wise, we're looking pretty good. And here, some more white could be pushed. What I'm trying to achieve is this kind of swirling effect that things are in motion, because it's one of the, if not the most dynamic, it's definitely one of the most dynamic looking models out there. Got to stretch out my legs and the cat will be more comfortable. Well, I will be a bit more comfortable too, but who am I? I'm just a mere human slave to this cat, to this mighty cat. And actually, let me just put some white, some more white on the base. And now a very gentle dry brush of white mixed with pink. So this very light pink, just to pick on the edges. It's like a human torch jumping out the void. And I left the eye sockets just black. Just black because there was no need to paint any eyes. It's like this unfortunate being was exposed to whatever happens in the void for a number of years, and we can't really expect it to come out any better for that long exposure. Now let me play around with a bit of dry pigments here. Oh, but maybe before I actually do that, let me just showcase again. That's the new Tara, the titled version. So we got 3 Taras running, one after one behind another. I assembled them separately because they will eventually be all part of one base. So it takes some planning because you need to fit 3 human-sized models on one 30mm base. So it takes some planning to do. Not the easiest thing to do, but doable. These two are actually connected. And this one fits very nicely with them. So that's the new Tara. Also, so just before I move to the final section of the stream, I just want to showcase some of the cool Malifaux burn stuff that I assembled over the weekend. Because why not? I mean, maybe, oh guys, if you see something that you really like, just shout out in the stream. I want you to paint it over the next stream in 2 weeks' time. And I might just do that, because why not? So let's put this one aside for a second. Those are 2 cult guys. I assembled 2 because I won't need more than 2 ever. So those are the walking ice pillars for Raspi 2 or Euripides 2. Very cool miniatures. No pun intended. And this is the big bad boy. Big bad wolf. No wolf, but big bad giant. That's Euripides 2. Oh, you wouldn't mind seeing some eyes. Alright, so this one actually uses these things that are called Rune Tokens. And one of the key elements of using him effectively in game is just keeping track of how many he has so that he can facilitate his actions and his crew's action. So that's why I magnetize them, just so that I can attach them to the base and keep track of how many he has. So I will do some snow around them so that they are nicely incorporated, whether they are in game or out of the game. And also I think one thing that I'm really happy about is Cultgeist gets your vote. All right, thanks for that. And that's another thing that I came up with. So that's the Calypso model. But the thing is that it's a huge model, lovely model. You got Dr. Beep, right? That guy who operates it, and he spends most of the game buried. So he's also magnetized to the base, so he can come off the base easily. And if he gets buried, there are magnets inside the Calypso, so he navigates it from the inside. He can, oops, that's how he fits in. And he doesn't fall off because those magnets are pretty strong. Yeah, if you get it wrong, if you assemble it in the wrong order, you really are in trouble because you need to assemble the parts that fit inside before gluing the two halves of the upper section together. So that's the trick there. There's another Malifaux Burns Master. So that's the Hoffman with lightning, which I attached, and I probably should have done it later on. Yeah, it's easy with Calypso. You can mess things up. And speaking of M2E, I got still a couple. This is the shirt model in the McCabe box, and I want to paint it like Skeletor from He-Man. So purple cloak, yellowish bones. That's the Butcher. Yeah, if you go the non-metallic metal way, then it can be extremely time-consuming. There is one, again, from Malifaux Burns. And there is something very, very special for a very special person that she will get it at some point in the future. So this lovely little guy on Pile of Skulls. He just wants to cuddle. And I have botanists, but everyone knows how botanists look like. And maybe one more that I can showcase while I'm at it is the McCabe. He looks more like Indiana Jones than the original McCabe, actually. Again, cool model. So Haunted, I may get to paint the Cull guys. I just don't know, because I may also get tempted to paint them for my own use before the next stream. Well, time will tell, but I will bear it in mind that you were keen to see how I paint them. So let's do some final touches on this one, and then I can start something else. So that's the 33 as we are with it at this point. And I will just apply some of the pink fluor pigment on the base. Well, quite a lot of it actually. And then what I do is I just add a couple drops of water, clean water, because water from the pot is, at this point, is pretty filthy. Could be used for glazes. It's that bad. So just a few drops. Here I am trying to avoid being surrounded with paints and then ended up surrounded with paints. So what I will do now is just, it seems counterintuitive, but it has worked quite well for me. So what I'm doing now is I'm just essentially mixing the dry pigment with water, which creates this. Yeah, that's your hair. That's the fluor pink, and I will just apply it to this line that I created around it, because it's different type of pink than what we have on the miniature. It will kind of settle it, I hope, nicely within the structure of the base. And the base was just quickly sculpted with milliput, nothing fancy there. So I hope you guys enjoyed that preview of what's in line. I mean, I have several other miniatures. I have Pandora 2. What else do I have? I have Hyrodin, Kenshiro, Disease Containment Unit, Iconic Sonya miniature version, the guy with a lot of shotguns for Guild. Don't remember his name right now. So if you'd like me to show anything in particular and present it to the camera before we go offline, just shout in the chat. But Haunted, you mentioned that you'd like to see how I paint eyes. There will be eyes on Euripides as well, because there will be those 3 small ice pillars that I will incorporate into the base. So that would be kind of fulfilling your request. I just think that cow guides are not that interesting because it's just ice on ice, moving blocks of ice. And with Euripides, it's even more. Now I'll just need to let it dry. Whoopsie. No need for pink on the back side of things. I'll just clean it up quickly. I can take away the excess of the paint if I feel like there's too much of it. And maybe push a little bit of this brighter pink into those flames just to tie them with the base better. Maybe even to the inside here, so that it looks like it jumped out of the void, affected the surface of the earth in some weird and unusual way. Maybe a little bit more closer to the ground level around the coffin. Well, that looks quite extreme. For my next stream, I'm still hesitating. I think I may do the Cult Guys, I may do Euripides, depending on what I actually manage to paint before my next stream. Now a bit of dry brush just to kind of make sure that it affects the base but doesn't dominate it too much. Can actually still use some magenta to help it settle in and combine with the base better. I think I won't be starting anything new. It just doesn't seem to make much sense if I'm not fully convinced yet what I will paint on my next stream, right? So that wouldn't be nice to start paint something and then continue with something else in 2 weeks' time. Yeah, that's better, I think. Okay, now push some magenta in between. Now it really looks like this weird flame-like pink or purple is kind of leaking into the real world, right? The real, yeah. I don't know what is real in Malifa. But clearly there is something more unreal than Malifa. So the more unreal leaking into unreal. That's what I think I want to get here. So kind of went a bit back and forth, but then I thought that the ultra bright neon pink turned out a bit too contrasted compared to the rest, and that way it's better incorporated into the overall composition. So one more thing that I need to do. And then we will wrap it up. Because then what I will do is just varnish it. And I think I will just paint Tara next. I won't wait until the next stream. Just we'll start painting her maybe even tomorrow. Because I really want to get her painted. I want to get that. So just painting the rim of the base pure black while I paint. Actually, that's the first base rim that I'm painting in the stream. I typically do it offline. So what I do first, I don't paint the bottom section, just make sure that I neatly paint around the upper section so that I don't paint over part of the miniature or part of the base that I built or that's there, because sometimes I just use pre-made resin bases. Although these days I very often sculpt them by myself because bases are not really the focal point. I don't do mini dioramas. I just do keep it simple and focus on the miniature. And then I go around the whole thing, make sure I apply solid layer of paint. It's important to do it before varnishing, because if you paint the rim of the base after you've varnished the model, then the paint will chip off easily. You can just push it on the table, bump into another miniature, and that's it. And the miniature will, and the paint will just chip off. And you don't want that. It annoys me because I'm a bit of perfectionist, especially when it comes to my own miniatures. And, well, any miniatures, because if I paint for bodies, I know that I will see them on the table, and it bothers me when I see paint chipping off from the rim of the base. That's not what it's supposed to be. So, just a couple minutes left, but let me just recap. So we started with just a base coated model, and here we are. So I'll just move it around slowly. The intention was to have this crazy fire going all over the model. Now I see one spot where I can actually attach a little bit. I will be putting pictures of it. I don't think tomorrow I will manage. Maybe the day after tomorrow. Maybe on Friday, because tomorrow and the day after I'm working from the office, so I'm away from home most of the time, and I don't want to take pictures when the light is not that favorable. I generally try to take pictures early in the morning when the light is not strong and when the sun is shining. And I don't know what kind of weather we can expect. Well, thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day too. There isn't really much rest. It's almost midnight here. So just once again, that's the back of the miniature. What song will the turn be set to? It's a good question. And that's the front. Pretty happy with the effect, especially that it looks like it's completely out of control. And there isn't really much left of that initial color. So you can clearly see how far I've gone from the initial, just this rich, saturated, deep brown towards this shade that seems to reflect a few other colors. Some of the dry pigments ended up in here. I don't want it here, I just want it out. Just get it out. And of course, you can connect with me on my social media. You can find me on Instagram and or just chat to me on the word forums, wherever feels easier for you. And for my next stream, tomorrow, Dark, so Guslada will be streaming. Make sure you don't miss out on that. And then I will be painting, and then the next week it's Eleanor and Haunted. Some cool stuff each week, at least 2 streams. Plenty of cool stuff for you to follow. I actually see one more quick room for improvement here, area for improvement. There we go, it's fixed now. And that's 33, so the Death Marshal that was locked but managed to get out with some help from Lady Justice. Clearly she's ready for action. Everyone hates to see her on the opposite side of the table, because she means she is trouble. But guys, thank you for sticking around, asking questions, keeping the chat alive. That's one of my favorite parts of the stream, just interacting with you guys, asking questions to you and replying to any questions you have. I will be posting pictures of the finished model on my Instagram later in the week. But for now, have a great rest of the day, evening, night, morning, wherever you are. And I will see you in 2 weeks' time. Take care, everyone.